Right, so today's crossover is Yu-Gi-Oh! Right, so I went and grabbed a Battle of Chaos booster box. Why did I grab this one? Well, because it's got one of the few characters I know, right, the Blackluster Soldier on it. So, in terms of pricing, the equivalent is only 20 packs, right, not 24. I know I'm a bit of a stickler, it's not one for one, but hey, it's fine, I've got all the loose packs, so I'd rather do exact, considering that's what we're doing with all the other sets and card games that we're doing crossovers with, essentially. Right, so we have 24 sets of 5 versus the Battle of Chaos booster box. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a pretty decent talking point, I think, for Flesh and Blood. Right, and the reason for that is, in terms of game design, or archetype design, if you will, I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Has the greatest comparison, right? Obviously, in its upbringing, Flesh and Blood was compared most to MTG, because that's where a lot of the play base generally came from. Now, play-wise, obviously it doesn't play like MTG. Card pools or segmentation doesn't really work, right, in terms of MTG either. MTG, you have the 5 core colors, and then the crossover cards, if you will, right? So all cards are split between those 5 types. But at the same time, you can run any of those cards in your deck. Flesh and Blood, you can't, right? You pick Warrior, you're only able to use generics or Warrior cards. Similarly, in Yu-Gi-Oh!, you know, it's still close in terms like MTG. So you can run any card you want. You get advantages for running the cards of your actual archetypes. But in that vein, I would say Flesh and Blood is closer to Yu-Gi-Oh! With the amount of archetypes actually available in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, I have no idea how packs go, right? Foil, Ultimate Fusion. Are we looking at any cards we are interested in? No. But the thing we probably should obviously talk about, right? So the typing. So you have Psychic, and then you have Dark. So my understanding is a lot of the archetype cards play into one of these two characteristics, right? So either you're running all spellcasters, right? Or all darks, or dark type creatures, if that makes sense. And then you have a lot of different cards that play off of those types, subtypes, if you will, right? So in that vein, I do think it's comparable to Flesh and Blood, right? We can say you have X archetype versus X archetype of Flesh and Blood. The downside, though, is that, again, in Flesh and Blood, you don't have as much crossover as any other card game, right? Every time they come up with a new hero, every time they pick X heroes, ooh, a synchro card? Link card. Which makes it a synchro card? I got, where did I get to? Jaden, right? So, E-heroes and everything, that's where I stopped watching the anime. We'll put foils one side and we'll do the other side. Again, I don't know value or anything like that. We're just opening so we can talk and have something in the background, if you will. Okay, so again, the big thing with Flesh and Blood to me is, although you have the archetypes, although you have card segmentation, and you have different pools, you don't have crossover, right? If I wanted, I could run a Spellcaster X, just give me something, Insect deck, right? Whether or not it's good, I don't know, but you could. That's the whole thing. So every card is still available and applicable to every single player, right? There is incentive for every player to pick up every set, to play and look for every card, and to enjoy every card, right? Regardless of what type of deck they're maining. In Flesh and Blood, yes, you'll have the competitive side where people want the best deck, and if the best deck relies on Dusk Till Dawn, then they'll be emphasized to open Dusk Till Dawn. But if they are, die-hard Warrior players, right, then the only sets that interest them are those that actually have cards for Warrior, right? So usually supplemental sets, Dusk Till Dawn in the way of Light Warrior, Monarch, and Welcome Direct. But that in itself is an issue, because it means that a large portion of the community isn't necessarily targeted with every set's release, especially once we get into the fact that, again, supplemental sets aren't supporting all of play. Oh, there are actually a lot. No, okay, so white is Synchro, and then blue is Link. But then you play Links to play Synchros, or something like that. XDs, 5Ds, whatever it's called. But yeah, so in terms of that, in terms of the model of Yu-Gi-Oh!, what do we get? What is the solution to the vast amount of archetypes, the vast amount of cards? It's disappointing. Double. It's obviously multiple sets, multiple packs, multiple different little niche products. So for instance, what is this? So on the box? This is a tireless battle, but I think it's what, like the Legends collections or something like that, right? And then of course we have various pack sizes, right? I don't think there is any real uniformity to Yu-Gi-Oh pack sizes. I've seen some that are like 6, some that are like 5. This is 9. So to that degree, they fine-tune it around the cards available in the set and the pull rates so that they can maximize incentive, which is something I think Flesh and Blood needs to do, because I think we are getting tired of, 70% of our cards ending up being bulk, especially if, we're opening more than one case. Usually in one case, you can definitely find all the commons you need, right? 3 of every common. You can almost find, oh, that's cute, a Magic Kariba. You can almost find, the majority of rares. Foils a bit different. Foils are still hard to pull in Flesh and Blood. Like, if you did the odds and the math behind a master set of foils for Flesh and Blood, right? I think a lot of people would be surprised at how expensive they should be versus how hard they are to actually pull. But we don't see any of that fine-tuning in terms of cards, right? If Dusk Till Dawn had less commons, less rares, right? Imagine it was the same pull rates, but we halved rares and commons. So every pack you got one common, not common, you got one rare, and every now and then it could be replaced with a Majestic. And then at the same time, instead of 7 commons, you got 4 to 5 or 3 to 4, right? I think that would make the set feel a lot nicer to open. Okay, again, we take out the draftable aspect because it's not meant to be draftable, so we don't necessarily need 10 cards, and you could also then cut all the tokens or the non-necessary excess commons, right, the reprints and whatnot, and still, let Monarch retain some of its value. I don't think we've got anything good. I think there is special foiling, right? So what are the types? Because Yu-Gi-Oh has always confused me. You have picture foils, right? Then have picture and name foils, and anything else? No, so we've only seen those 2, but I'm pretty sure there are some like secret stuff. But yeah, I think if we were to see fine-tuning of sets, okay, to the bare minimum that was actually required, right, we could then also see tuning of price points, okay, because again, to bring it up, right, supplemental sets will definitely cost Legend Story Studios less to manufacture, but there is no discrepancy in pricing between this and a standard set. Right, you don't have the benefit of being draftable, right? So it doesn't hit all the uses. Okay, in terms of uses, we'll say draftability, playability, so just finding X cards for competitive play, collecting, and I guess investing, holding on to boxes. Right, of those, supplemental sets hit 3 of the 4 categories. Same time, you get 10 instead of 15 cards. The boxes are smaller, the cases are smaller, so shipping and freighting is cheaper. Altogether, these would amount to cost savings that for Legend Story Studios that we don't see reflected in the products. Is that right? Is that fair? Well, I would say I don't really care, because overall, Flesh and Blood is still considerably cheap when compared to other TCGs, right? It's almost equivalent to Yu-Gi-Oh! From what I see. Pokemon is on the expensive side, but you get 36 packs. MTG has gone off the rails in all regards, right? With Commander Masters, the Lord of the Rings set. I think even the Throne of Eldraine Revisit, which is meant to be a standard set, isn't it? Is seeing ridiculous price increases. So that aside, we could see fine-tuning, we could see balancing similar to what we see in Yu-Gi-Oh! That would work for Dusk Till Dawn, and also allow them to pass on things to the consumer. We'll open some Dusk Till Dawn, right? Haven't found anything good. Obviously, the things I'm on lookout for are... does he even appear in the set? I think I looked at the top cards, and it's like the Blue Eyes Light Dragon, the one that looks all metallic and kind of like not a rocket, a plane. There we go. And then there's some Dark Magician stuff, which would be interesting to find. But we got Magic Karibo. I do think that's cute. I'll stick it with my Winged Karibo. But yeah, okay. So in this pack, at this point, right, I have boxes full of commons and rares. So to me, these are just junk. So a lot of people, you get to the point where they're junk, and it's also getting to the point where you can't even give them away, because no one is really interested in taking your bulk and sifting through, or say the general consensus is we'll make decks out of them, hand them out to people, get people into the game, and all that is great. My time, your time to actually do that, I would just say to someone, go grab a Blitz deck. Blitz decks are still incredibly cheap, So why not just, you know, take advantage of what Legendary Studios have done? A deck that is, for all intents and purposes, in sync, if you will. And also then you're supporting Legendary Studios. So we could do with less cards. Right, we could do with less than 10 in a supplemental set. Drafting is a different story because obviously it's built around drafting and 15 cards is the draft model for Flesh and Blood. But yeah, if we were to cut half of these commons, right, so altogether their pull rates would be less. You know, it'd take longer to get a full set. We might be able to retain some value in some of the actual playable commons, right? And then rares, you cut down to 1. I think that would actually work in maintaining a supplemental settle. You could then, you know, chuck on maybe a 10% price decrease or something like that to again re-incentivize that this is a supplemental set. This is a cheaper sort of gateway product, if you will, or what's the word? A middle product, right? Something to tide you over between actual set releases. I think that would come across really nicely. And again, targeting. Okay, so go back to Yugioh. Yes, I don't know the ins and outs, so I could be completely off base. But I do know that all these cards are applicable to every player. Whether or not you want to run them in every deck, you know, that's another story. But every player has the option or the ability to take advantage of and make use of every single card that is ever printed in Yugioh. With the exception of, obviously, I want to say, like, such ritual summons, or cards that, you know, require other cards to work with one another. Then we get into the territory of segmentation. Again, the art is beautiful, right? If this wasn't my, like, 50th copy, I'd be excited. But yeah, so something needs to be done in that regard, right? And the easiest thing to do is to, you know, try to cut costs, try to make sets cheaper so that you can get more people incentivized to open. Okay, I'm not here to argue with anyone who is opening Flesh and Blood. Obviously, I'm opening a lot of Flesh and Blood, right? I know there are people who open every set, who enjoy every set, regardless of what they actually play, regardless of what they do in competitive events or local events. Okay, cold foil. We'll put that aside, because I do want to talk about the cold foils as well. But yeah, so that aside, what I'm trying to say is, just because you're participating, right, doesn't mean that 100% of the play base is actually participating. Because, simply put, that's not true. Okay? By and large, I would have to assume that Flesh and Blood has the lowest sort of turnover of people participating in every set. Of someone participating in every set back to back to back to back. Right? Because, again, they can't hit every demographic with products. Okay? It's just not how the game is designed. So something in that vein has to be adjusted to account for that. Right? In a month or two, what happens? Enough cards have entered circulation that anyone who does want any specific cards isn't going to go searching through packs. Right? They're going to go and buy it off the secondary market. You want X Majestic. Okay? You get 6 in a box. Are you going to pay, what is it in the US, like $300, $320 to find Majestics you want? Or are you going to go pick them up when, you know, on average Majestics are what? Say, you know, a few dollars to maybe 20 at the most, depending on the Majestic, if you want a basic version. Okay? So 6 times 20 is 120. Yeah, you get your cold foil, you might get a common cold foil, in which case, you know, it's not worth buying a case. You're having a decent chance to find a legendary. Say you get 2 legendaries, they're roughly $30. Okay, that's 60, that brings us to 180. Chuck in the cold foil common if you get that, right? To roll the dice, to play the odds, it's not favorable at these current price points, at the current way sets are laid out. So I do think we need something adjustment. We need either more products, again, to tide people over, to incentivize other people to play and participate in each quarter cycle, right? I am thinking in terms of a business perspective, because again, balancing, design, I love the top end of Dusk Till Dawn, right? Look, this is beautiful, okay? All the Majestics to me seem like they can be played. There is no dud cards in the top end of Dusk Till Dawn. Even the rares and commons, they're not horrible, but there is way too many. Okay, tokens aside, tokens were completely redundant in this set if it's not draftable. To have this stack of rares and commons that is just going in the bin, right? In my quest to find my Majestics, and in my quest to find my Legendaries and everything else. It's just not necessary. So, yeah, do us a favor. Cut it down. 9 card packs, 7 card packs, 6 card packs. Something. Something to make it easier to digest. You know? Then also chuck in the cost savings from that and make everyone happy. Again, cost-wise, I'm not that... I don't have that much of an issue when it comes to Flesh and Blood, because to me, the cost is fantastic. It is one of the easiest card games to get into. Again, buying a case sometimes can feel a bit horrible. The legendaries are far more balanced in Dusk Till Dawn than anything else, so buying loose packs is also a bit more of a plus for Dusk Till Dawn. But there's only so many cards you want and so many cards you can get before the set is redundant. Again, if we go over the print numbers, the estimate I've come up with is 288,000, given rough odds for Marvels and Fables, right? And then using the 20 serialized art cards with the percentage of the pull rate that's left to calculate the total amount of boxes. Okay, so at that amount, there's more than 6 million booster packs. Okay, in those 6 million booster packs, every 66 or 64, whatever it is, gets you a legendary. Okay, so divided by 60, right? We now have 100,000 of legendaries. 100,000 different legendaries, divided by 8, right, for all the different copies. Okay, do we need, 15,000-ish copies of every legendary in circulation? Is that adequate to supply the current player base? I would say it's way more than necessary, right? I think the print numbers, by and large, for Flesh and Blood are still too high, right? I don't think we're back to the point of Monarch yet. I think Monarch is still overprinted, especially when you tie in the Unlimited. I think, this escalation of like 50,000 to 100,000 every year isn't accurate when, again, the majority of people who do end up playing and joining Flesh and Blood, they're not pack openers. They're not consumers of boxes by and large. They are players. Okay? They're people enjoying the fantastic and well-designed card game. But the card game itself doesn't lend itself to opening boxes and packs en masse to find cards. It doesn't lend itself to the lottery model, which we've gone over before. So I do think we need some sort of shake-up. Beautiful, beautiful card. I think this is my first copy too, in Rainbow Foil. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely wonderful effect. Should have been more, right? There should have been more support for Cheyenne. One card just because she shows up in the lore. That to me is a disappointment as this set, right? Again, it feels like a weird jumble of tacked on cards at the end. Like it was meant to be draftable, wasn't meant to be draftable, and then it was meant to support all these specializations, it didn't, and I don't know. Feels weird. Again, I'll keep saying it. I love the top end. Absolutely hate the bottom end of Dusk Till Dawn. Right? I'd rather just not have to sift through it. Just chuck away the front 7 cards. That is completely fine with me. Ah, there we go. There's the first special foil. Right? It's got like the starry night. I don't really know what to call it. Zombie vampire. I don't know if it's worth anything. And then going back to cycling back to Yugioh and the products of Yugioh. Okay, Yugioh, there are tins, right? But mostly it is booster box. It is sets, expansions in different archetypes, right? So X set comes out and it supports X cards. For instance, this is mostly dark spellcaster. Well, no, there's still a decent amount of other cards in it, right? But yeah, to have that grounded approach, to understand that each set can't target everyone in your audience, right? Yu-Gi-Oh's on the ball when it comes to that. And I think that's something that Flesh and Blood needs to do, because, again, when it comes to the player base, when it comes to the way people digest and pick up different cards to play with or collect, outside the people, again, doing master sets or going for X cold foils, X legendaries, the player community will be segmented behind what is current and then what they love in themselves. So to have products that are specifically targeted to those things, more so than they are now, right? I think go all in on it rather than the 3 to 4 heroes we see. Have highly targeted products. Have a full set dedicated to a couple, right? When I say a couple, I mean 2 or even 1, and have more products. I think People enjoy how restrained Flesh and Blood is when it comes to product releases and everything like that. But I think they fail to understand the metrics behind it when it comes to the business standpoint. Right? I'm not a business expert. I'm not going to sit here saying, I'm not a Magic Karibo. That makes me less proud to find the other one. But what I am going to present is this understanding that just because your player base expands tenfold, your sets are targeting, a fifth of those players in what is actually usable, right? Then your growth is not tenfold. Your growth is twofold. Okay? And again, we can go through the layers of segmentation that Flesh and Blood actually has to really show that in terms of business, in terms of marketing sets, right? There's just not enough to keep everyone happy. Yes, a lot of people love Dusk Till Dawn. Yes, a lot of people were excited by the release event and the hype around a new set. But in its longevity, right? Who's going to stick around, right? Who's going to continue opening packs to find their cards rather than use the secondary market? There needs to be these products in the mid-level for people between sets to actually, again, encourage people to participate in every release, to encourage people to continue to support Legend Star Studios. Because, I mean, their quarter reports must look real weird, in my opinion, right? They print roughly a set every quarter. So they have all these manufacturing costs from the previous quarter, most likely. Sometimes, they'll run in the same quarter, but usually you'd offset them. Okay? So you have a release go into your costs, and release go into your costs rather than costs into release. But that aside, right, for every time, the revenue produced by Dusk Till Dawn after its initial release, it must considerably taper off. Because everyone has bought, lots of stores are still sitting on their boxes, still selling their boxes, and who's really continuing to buy from Legend Star Studios, right? Yeah, distributors will have contracts, and they will move Xboxes. I wouldn't be surprised if they got rid of all the Dusk Till Dawn product computing, because it was pretty hyped up, right? And obviously it was out of print right from the get-go. But at the same time, that means there are these big gaps in what they are manufacturing and the revenue they are actually generating, which to me is a concern. So I would say take a peg out of Yugioh, and that's what I'm trying to see what I'm trying to show is there are lots of similarities from Flesh and Blood to other card games, right? But they are kind of set in their ways in terms of their business model, and I don't think it will work in the long run, right? Imagine in 3 years, say we add an extra 4 heroes to it, right? So at 4 sets a year, say they've ramped it up a little bit, say we now get 6 sets a year. Okay, 6 sets a year versus like 18 to 20 different heroes. So each set, right, is only targeting a few. And at the same time, where do you actually expand, right? The majority of cards that come out need something new, right? That's where I thought Unity would really come into play, that we'd see a lot more of these keywords, right? Like we saw in Outsiders when it came to the new 3 tokens. But we didn't see that. We saw the majority of Prism cards, right, circle around Heralds. A huge stack of them just be the reprinted Heralds, right? So good, I think it's like 12% of her cards are very, very niche. Okay, not everyone's going to want them. Again, they end up in here, which is going to end up in a box, and probably eventually the bin. Oh, double cold foil. Well, it's a rare, but to me, it's a common, basically. Okay, so in terms of product design, product release, right? We're gonna wait. I think September, October, yeah, probably November. We'll say November for the release of the next set, the next standard set, of which, again, 3 to 4 heroes are going to be targeted. The current model seems like they pick 3, but we end up getting 6 heroes for them, right? So again, what if someone doesn't care? Okay, Savage Lands is the next argument. So Weirdly to me, Mechanologist has been touched the least, but at the same time, Mechanologist is the most accessible. But yeah, all the Mechanologist players out there, right, who die-hard Mechanologist, especially because Mechanologist plays considerably different to everyone else. What do? You know, do they just buy into a set for the sake of buying into a set? Sure, they might pick up 1 or 2 boxes, but over the length of the whole set, you know, they're not going to come back, they're not going to visit. And Dusk Till Dawn, it's not draftable, right? If I go pick up a box to play with friends on X weekend, Dusk Till Dawn never enters the argument. So if we're not succeeding in this current design, right, we need to look elsewhere and pick something else to use as a model and example. And again, the similarities between the card pools and segmentation in Flesh and Blood versus, say, Yu-Gi-Oh! is quite a lot. That I think the model of Yu-Gi-Oh! Would work quite well for Flesh and Blood. To have these smaller sets, to have smaller card packs that are really, really specified towards X heroes, X deck archetype, right? So, I mean, Decimator Axe, that's probably a great one to use as an argument from Dusk Till Dawn, right? Imagine we had a whole lot of cards that were just built around that card, right? The cold foil would be exceptionally greater, more so than it is now, because it's already ramping up because people are loving it, right? But you could come out with that style, right? You could have a whole bunch of cards just designated to play off that axe. Again, you get more specified, but you're doing a smaller set that's easier to produce and costs less, okay? You're really maximizing your target audience, more so than the sets as they are now. Because, again, junk. Just filler, not needed, right? I'd rather them pass me on the savings, rather than me essentially act as their removal company, right? And send these off to a landfill for them. Anyway, I don't know, let me know your thoughts. Again, I think product diversity is the crucial next step for Flesh and Blood as it continues to grow and expand, again, horizontally rather than vertically, in terms of power creep or just reinforcing X archetypes. I mean, another one, Oldhim, right? Oldhim and I guess even Briar's card or Vizari's. Right, Briar's close, but Oldhim and Vizari. 2 Majestics. Who are they for? They're there for the lore thematics, and I guess they're there to support the Living Legend format once it eventually comes out. But the competitive play environment, including what is legal, is the biggest point of Flesh and Blood at the moment. And these products don't support that. Right? What they support is all those players going to the secondary market and picking up the cards they want and they need for the current meta. Not diving through packs, not diving through countless commons and rares once they get a playset. So I do think the Yu-Gi-Oh! Model is a little bit better for Flesh and Blood than what it is currently. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See ya.